Make sure you eat your veggies. Did your mother ever say that to you? Eat your veggies. You're not getting any dessert until you eat all your veggies. Well, she was looking out for you. And particularly without knowing it, she was looking out for your brain health, especially later in life. How can your veggies improve late life brain health? Well, Harvard recently published a study showing us how. I'm Dr. John Bartemus, and I'm putting the pieces together to help you live a life at optimal. You can't live an optimal life without having an optimally functioning brain, because the brain runs everything. Well, Harvard recently published a study looking at the association of vegetable and fruit intake and subjective cognitive function later in life. They studied 27,000 US professional men, so men who had professional jobs like veterinarians, dentists, optometrists, etc., and they followed them for 26 years. And what they did was they wanted to know, how does the amount of vegetable and fruit intake impact later life cognitive function, subjective cognitive function, which means self-reported cognitive function. So they measured how much vegetable and fruit these people were eating, these men were eating, and then they tested them at various points throughout the 26 years to say, how do you report your cognitive function is? So what are they noticing? Are they noticing an increase in brain fog or a decline in memory or word finding or those sorts of things? Cognitive function. Because obviously in these professional men, cognitive decline leads to decreased performance in their profession, and that impacts their life. Well, decreased cognitive performance impacts all of us, whether we're a professional male or a mother or a grandmother, etc. So what did they find? Well, what the study found was that the more vegetable and fruit intake you have, the better your cognitive function later in life. Surprise! We probably could have intuited that, but it's cool to see this because the study found that the more vegetable and fruit intake you have up to 18 to 22 years before you're elderly, right? The more vegetable and fruit intake you have decades before age-related decline sets in, age-related or late life cognitive decline sets in, the lower your risk of having a poor self-reported cognitive function later in life. So let's cram that all together because I just said a lot. Essentially what this says is the earlier you adopt a healthy nutritional lifestyle, the earlier you eat the amount of vegetables and fruits each day that your mother told you to eat, the lower your risk of having poor cognitive function later in life, or the higher your probability of having good brain function later in life. So the sooner you eat and the more you eat, the better. How many servings a day is good? Well, what they found is that men who ate 6 servings a day of vegetables especially, not vegetables and fruit, but vegetables, 6 servings a day of vegetables had a 34% decreased risk of rating poor cognitive function compared to men who ate only 2 servings per day of vegetables. So if you're shooting for a number, you want a minimum of 6 servings per day of vegetables to give yourself the best shot at having optimal cognitive function later in life. That's not too hard to do. Now, why do increased vegetable and fruit intake preserve, or why does it preserve cognitive function later in life? Well, vegetables and fruits have high amounts of antioxidants and flavonoids and polyphenols that combat oxidative stress, which leads to neurodegeneration. So if you want to preserve brain health, you want to have a high antioxidant capacity to oppose the oxidative stress or the damage to the brain that occurs with aging and toxins and all of the things that we're exposed to in our life. So you can do that by having a minimum of 6 servings of vegetables per day, and doing that as soon as possible or as many years as possible before you age. So if you're seeking to have late life quality of life that matches what you have now, then you want to have the best brain function that you can have later in life. And what Harvard has just published is that the sooner you meet your requirements for vegetables and fruits, the higher the probability that you're going to have a healthy brain later in life when you want it.